Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March edition of the Garden State Java User Group. We are very happy to have Mary Grygleski here with us, but we'll do a more formal introduction in a few minutes. Those of us who have been here before know we take care of our some of our upfront slides that before the meeting gets started. So our agenda is our thank you to our sponsors. Talk about a little bit what's new, introduce Mary, and then at the end of her presentation, we'll have a giveaway of a license to IntelliJ IDEA, and we'll hear more about that as we go. So our platinum sponsor is JFrog, and Ari Waller, he's a head of developer relations, will stop in from time to time and do a giveaway for other things that JFrog. I think there were headphones and other electronic gizmos that that you can win. Azul is our silver sponsor, and our partner is DevNexus. The annual DevNexus conference is April 12th through 14th of this year. It is in person, and it is in Atlanta, Georgia. So I have to give you the URL for that. And then our per meeting sponsors is JetBrains and Jakarta EE, or more accurately, the Eclipse Foundation. So JetBrains is the company that is behind IntelliJ IDEA, WebStorm, PyCharm, you name it, they have a number of IDEs that are available. And Jakarta EE, they have a hosting for Crowdcast that we had used at one time. But we appreciate their support because we can use it at any time. So what's new? Well, today is International Women's Day, and it's awesome that we have Mary here. And for those of you who don't know, our leadership team, we have three awesome ladies: Neha, Caitlin Mahoney, and Diane Liperance, and she's one of our advisors. So their contributions are just awesome. They help a lot with behind the scenes stuff, with getting speakers, and everything that you can imagine. So
and they're just awesome, and they're just awesome people.
Yes, that too, of course. That goes without saying. So, but yes, thank you for putting that in there, Scott.
Hey, credit where credit is due.
So big news is JDK 18 will come out 2 weeks from today, and InfoQ will have a news item for posted that day for it. So look for that. Jakarta EE10 is still scheduled to be released in the next quarter. There are a number of the specifications that have passed their technical reviews and their TCKs. And then a little shameless plug. Last week I published JDK 18 and 19, what we know so far. And, I talk a little bit about the new features of JDK 18, which have been frozen for, since like the last 3 months, like it was in early December. And some of that, it's an analysis of, which JEPs are in the different major projects like Panama, Valhalla, etc. And then kind of surmise about what might be coming out in JDK 19, which is scheduled for September of this year. And so, one of the JEPs has not been formally targeted, but it's proposed to target. And so, those features will start coming out and getting put on the website for JDK 19 at some point soon. There's this Java community acceptance testing that's available to all developers. Please visit this site if you're interested in, maybe test driving Jakarta EE, the samples, this and that, and this is your chance to provide some feedback.
Something else I think we forgot to put on the schedule real quick. Yeah, I don't think it's on the schedule. But I'll just, since I spoke, I'll just say it. Oracle's doing a remote conference this month called Developer Live Java Innovations. Neha and I are both speaking at, as is Chandra, who is part of our JUG but not here today. But it's going to be entirely remote. It's 1 day in the Americas and then 1 day in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Pacific. I'll put a link in the chat, but I recommend attending remotely. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw a tweet on that today with everybody who's on there. That's a nice big list there. That's pretty cool.
I should have put it in the notes. I forgot to remind you, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
I'd like to share before we move on why International Women's Day is important in a tech context. I know not everyone is in necessarily a seat of hiring power, but regardless of where you find yourself as a decision maker, you have the ability to be a friend and an advocate to the women in your life or in your workplace. Data shows, just to stick to data, not anecdotes, men will apply for a job if they meet 40 to 50% of the criteria. On average, women don't apply to a job unless they meet 90% of the criteria. We all know about salary differences. The pay gap between men and women on average is 83 cents to the dollar. When you get into director or VP level roles, it actually gets worse. Women in director and VP roles make 70 cents on the dollar to men, and that's in tech. And then in a VC perspective, which is my world, of all the venture capital dollars that float around the world, only 3% of them go to women founders. And that is inclusive of male and female co-founder teams. So there's much progress that's been made in the world in terms of equality. I think the fact that we're all here today talking to each other, interacting, exchanging information, experiences, it's wonderful. But we do have a long way to go. And days like today are not just a Hallmark card waiting to happen. They are an important reminder of the roles we all need to play. So thank you all for joining. I'm glad to have a moment to just share some information to you, and the fact that we all can play a role, and we all need to play a role unless you want to miss out on fabulous coworkers and cool products that need to exist but aren't getting funding. So thanks for joining us, and that's why today is important.
Okay, Lynn, that was awesome. Yeah, I was, some of those stats are still staggering, despite the fact that this is the 21st century and, we're, 25% or no, what am I saying? 20% into it already. And yeah, it's
exactly. If any of that is surprising to you, that's a problem. And that's your invitation to be part of the solution.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say a word about the, the DevRel team over at JetBrains. You had, Trisha G, Helen Jo Scott, Dahlia, and Sarisha, I believe. I know Trisha G left, but when the four of them together, I mean, you just can't ask for a better, powerhouse team to, provide, information about JetBrains products and all that. So yeah, good stuff.
Hell yeah.
So thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate that. That was good. That was,
You got it.
So speaking of awesome ladies, we have here Mary Grygleski. I had the pleasure to meet her, I think at BNY Mellon about 4 years ago. It was at the JCP 20th anniversary, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, before the pandemic. So yeah.
Yes, that's right. It was that.
Yeah.
So Mary is a Java champion and a senior developer advocate at DataStax. It's a leading data company or data management company that champions open source software and specializes in big data, database as a service, streaming, and cloud native systems. She spent 3.5 years as a developer advocate at IBM, focusing on Java, Jakarta EE, OpenJ9, open source, cloud, and distributed systems. So Mary transitioned from Unix and the C world to Java at around the 2000 timeframe, and has never looked back. She considers herself a polyglot person and loves to continue learning new and better ways to solve real life problems. She is an active tech community builder outside her day job and currently serves as the president of the Chicago Java User Group. Please visit their meetup page, and you hear more about some upcoming events with them as well. And she's also a co-organizer for several IBM-sponsored meetup groups in the greater Chicago area. So welcome, Mary. It's awesome to have you here with us. And I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It truly is an honor for me to be here. And also the fact that you're spending your evening hour coming to listen to me. So thank you very much. So let me then share my screen. I'll try to be not too, not wasting your time, but let me share. Can you see my screen?
We can, thank you.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, let me make sure I kind of play it in the presentation mode. Okay, good. So you can see. Okay, great. So first of all, I wanted to point out that I actually transitioned from a very short-term job at HiveMQ, and then now I'm at DataStax. And actually today was my second day. So I kind of have started learning about Apache Pulsar kind of just recently too. I actually knew that I would be working on it, so I started reading up on it, but still, there's like so much details on it. I'm like, oh my, wow, this isn't like something, not for the faint of heart. But the thing is too, my point of coming in here, I really wanted to share about this topic as I'm discovering it. So please bear with me. And maybe some of you are already working on big data and looking into Pulsar, working with Cassandra, all of these things. So I would be very happy to connect, to continue the conversation with you as I'm also journeying to learn about this too. So may I ask too, if any of you are already working with Apache Pulsar by any chance, or maybe looking into it? I would be just interested to know about that too. Is anyone working with that? Or maybe actually I have to kind of take a look in this. Okay, but you can let me know.
I don't know if people like using, there's the reactions you could use in Zoom. I've never really used them, but we can try if
Oh.
that helps.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Yeah, I'm aware too, this being such a new thing, so then not many people are aware of it or kind of just heard about it. I think at this point is one of these new things again. And it's also kind of specifically to kind of ideal for more of a big data type of scenario. So I'm sure too, in general, if we're doing some small, what you call IoT projects, then you probably won't be using this just yet. You can use Apache Pulsar too to do your IoT project too. But I think it's really catered more for the big data, for the multi-cloud, multi-stream type of scenario. And that's what it's really good at. So, but nonetheless too, I think the world is moving in that direction. So I do believe that this would be something of the future, so to speak, right? So, and again, let me start. So today's talk is about event streaming, event messaging for the best of both worlds. I think I realized that when I gave the title, I gave it like event messaging. So there's been a lot of like interchangeably kind of use of these terminologies. So first of all, I would like to go through a couple of just trying to get a common ground of understanding of all of these terminologies. So just bear with me. So I just joined. So thank you very much already for Michael to be introducing me. So I probably won't kind of go through this again, but this is just a kind of bios page and also how you can get a hold of me. So I will have the information towards the end, at the end of my presentation as well. So no need to worry about, copying it right now. So, okay, so this is just like a quick an agenda too, and as such too, I realized that as I was listening to Michael doing the introduction, I was like looking at my thing. I said, you know what, I don't think it's really quite. I'm doing it in this order, but anyway, so that shows you that. I'm also still like refining, obviously, of this presentation. So, but the idea is that I just wanted to bring up, this concepts of events and then talking about it, event streaming, all these event processing, all these things, complex event processing, event-driven messaging, and then the semantics that we use, pops up and queuing. And then why do we want to use event streaming? And then also then bring in this brief introduction to Apache Pulsar and its dependencies too on Zookeeper and Bookkeeper. And then a bit of a comparison between Apache Pulsar and Apache Kafka too. And I probably won't have time, actually, at this point, I haven't used it yet. So, but I'm hoping to come back to you and then, or you can sign up for any future tutorials that I'll be giving on using Apache Pulsar as well. So I think that would be an interesting thing. So, but for today, I won't have any code samples, so I apologize for that. So first of all, just wanted to bring up the many facets of computing events, right? Events are like everywhere. So I just thought it may be good to kind of first kind of go back to some, kind of fundamentals, understanding what is an event, generically speaking, right? So I was like looking up the dictionary. So the first interpretation or definition of such is something that just happens, right? An occurrence. So that's an event. But the thing is too, I realize it's very interesting is that if you go by the theory of relativity, I think that's what we can use that to kind of explain or further, in the computing world. That's what events really are. We're trying to make sense out of it, in a computing sense, and by, through the look on the theory of relativity. So essentially too is the fundamental entity of observed physical reality represented by a point that's designated by 3 coordinates of place, so the x, y, and z coordinates, and one of time in the space-time continuum postulated by theory of relativity. I think that's a really good way of interpreting events, So events is kind of, it's a bit more of an abstract kind of concept, it's something with the place and also with the time. I think and that's essentially is making like computing all the more challenging because of the fact that, we're not dealing with only data in that place, but it's also in time too. So it makes actually computing quite fun too because of this time aspect, I think. So first of all, let's kind of look at the event streaming processing, right? So essentially too, I kind of took it from some interpretation from the internet, and I think this kind of explains it well. It's basically the practice of taking action on a series of data points that originate from a system that continuously creates data. So that's like a good way of kind of explaining it, I think. So event refers to each data point in the system. So the place and the time of this data point. And then the stream is basically ongoing delivery of those events. Those are the streams. And so a series of events can also be referred to as streaming data or data streams. And to me too, I feel if we're talking about stream processing, it kind of implies to multiple, it can be like coming from multiple sources. So the processing parts deal with more of, ingesting kind of the data and then making sense out of it, doing analytics and processing on it and all kinds of stuff to it. But the event itself is what happens, and the processing is what kind of makes sense out of what has happened kind of from the data. And then there's also this concept of complex event processing too, which is like CEP. So it's really a set of techniques for capturing and then analyzing streams of data as they arrive to identify opportunities or threats in real time. So CEP basically enables systems and applications to respond to events and trends and patterns in the data as they happen. So that's kind of complex event processing. It's not just dealing with one source. We're talking about a whole ecosystem of different events that are processing from different sources, and we try to capture it and make sense out of it and synchronize all of these data, all of these things. So, and then there's also the concepts of event-driven and versus message-driven messaging too. Now, so now we get into more of the messaging part. Is when events come, it carries with it data. So that's kind of the messaging part. And then it used to be more like messaging, dealing with maybe more static kind of data at rest. But now, actually, what will add more value to it is basically not just at rest. It's basically when it's like, in transit, the data, when it's happening, as it's happening. The real-time processing is what will bring more value to what we do, every day. If we have to analyze NFL, the football Super Bowl game, we want to immediately get the data and able to make sense out of, all the players, how are they performing, all of the statistics can be processed right away. That's kind of like real-time type of analysis that, as the data comes in, you're analyzing it and making sense out of it. So anyway, so event-driven essentially is more about sender admitting messages, and then only the interested subscribers will subscribe to the messages. So that's more of an event-driven approach. So basically, you can kind of call it more of a pub-sub type of approach. Publisher will publish the messages, and the publisher doesn't know where the messages are going to be sent to, and neither does he or she cares? Like this publisher, it's just more like I'm just sending something. And then usually too, it's making use of a broker. So broker is sort of like a post office kind of a concept too, right? So you send the messages over to the broker. It's up to the broker to distribute it accordingly to whoever is interested in the messages like that. So it's more event driven. And then there's also message driven, but in message driven systems, we're talking about the sender and receiver being known to one another. So the address is actually known to each, to the publishing side too. So that's more of a message driven kind of interpretation of such. And basically too, this particular definition too, as such too, that I also was explaining when I was doing the reactive messaging talks too, that's how you can kind of differentiate between the two, event driven versus message driven. And so, okay, so now then, if we're, what would be the opposite side of doing event-driven approach, right? So that would be more about batch processing. They are more like we're waiting for all of the data to gather all the data and then process them. Not in real time. It's more like, after the fact, after the events happen, you're batching everything up to process it. So that's kind of the difference between, this modern way of dealing with events and then versus batching. But the batch too has its purposes too, but it's maybe you're like processing some, at the end of the day there are changes that happens in a company about employee data changes or something like that. There are systems of record that there's no need for any real-time purposes. Then you can kind of batch things up and process them at night. And I'm sure too, some of you too, like myself too, I'm getting old, in the old days too, I still remember I actually work on some company batch processing systems that only runs during the night, when people are sleeping, when your system are not under load and that type of stuff. So anyway, so that's that. Oops. I think here, okay. So now, then after a bit of this introduction, so let's kind of take a look, right? There are event messaging, semantics, and patterns too. So basically, too, there are like two kinds of way of doing messaging too. So when we talk about like streaming is the pops up, like I mentioned a bit earlier too, about, event driven, pops up, publish, subscribe, or producer, consumer type of semantics. So basically too, publishing client will send the data and then it relies on the broker. And brokers, think of it, right, like a post office. It's more like publisher, as I described to you publish the message, you don't know where the message is, and neither do I care, and basically give it to the post office. And okay, so I'll give an example. I worked for HiveMQ just the past 2 months and was on MQTT, this protocol for IoT messaging. So that makes use of the pops up approach. And basically too, the publisher will then, how would you know, right? You have all the messages that you're going to send to someone. So you always associate your message with a topic. So then subscriber then will know what topic to subscribe to. That's how you label the messages. So think of think of the broker like the post office, because it's I want to publish something, I go to the post office, I give it a label and said, okay, these are the messages. And then basically whoever is interested on the subscribing side, the subscribing client who wants to receive the data will then have to subscribe to that topic in order to get the messages. So obviously too, like subscriber won't get the message until the publisher has kind of published messages onto the topic, and then the broker will then deliver that to the destination, to the subscribers essentially. So that's pops up in a nutshell. And then about like message queuing too. So message queuing too is really a form of asynchronous service to service communications. I guess much like pops up too is event driven, it's also asynchronous. It's used in serverless and microservices architecture. So messages are stored on the queue until they are processed and deleted. So, and now that's the difference, is that in message queuing, is basically each message is processed only once by a single consumer. And it can be used for decoupling heavyweight processing to buffer or batch work and to smooth the spiky workloads. So essentially, that's what the message queuing is. Basically, the message is processed only once. Okay, now then about event streaming. So what is like driving the change, right, in today's world? Event streaming is becoming more and more popular. So basically, these days, right, as I mentioned, there are needs for real-time data that are needed, right, to enhance customer experiences and create a competitive advantage for your business. Is even like that one earlier, like Super Bowl example, like you want to be able, you're watching the game, you want to see the player statistics as it happens. So you can actually make use of real-time data. In fact, there are already systems that are doing that type of work, right, of processing data in real time. So it makes the experience a lot more enjoyable too. The results right away. You don't need to wait for too long. And then another usage too for this kind of event streaming would be for data pipelines to build like AI and machine learning smart models from time series event streams. My understanding is that I actually did a co-presentation with a co-speaker actually from Ukraine, and he's the Reactive Foundation member too, right, contributing to the RSocket. Anyway, so we did one actually using RSocket. So that's also a very real-time type of protocol, right? Reactive protocol to, we actually built a simple pipeline to play like Pac-Man game, and we're sending, we're doing it like a machine learning way of reinforcement model of learning all the moves as the Pac-Man goes, on the grid, and then we're kind of determine or train the model to learn how to make the moves smartly in that case. So you can actually, best is to use an event streams to help you with that type of, like a gaming scenario to use like event streams. So. And then there are also like the third kind would be if you want scalability to meet the demands of large volumes of data generated by like application operating at the edge. So say IoT devices, you want to collect data continuously. Let's say in a field that you're gathering all of the data, they come into the server as streams of data. So they come in, without discrimination. You're collecting data in like terabytes or something, in any given point in time. So basically, using event streams will be like the best way because it decouples, right? The sender and the receiver. It's actually can scale up really, really quickly too. So, okay, so like then why event streaming? So I think I already kind of talked about it and watch for events with the system or application. And then you can kind of subscribe to topics to see certain event types and then make decisions on data in real time, not after the event, right? You want to know things as it happens. And you want to, essentially too, you want to be able to ingest like high frequency of messages with very low latency. So that's the key of like event streaming. And so now then let me introduce Apache Pulsar. As such, the project is an open source Apache project, and it's also being used at DataStax for developing their Astra streaming, and also the Luna streaming is basically with big data. So, okay, so meet Pulsar. So just a quick thing then about Pulsar, introducing to you is open source, and it was originally created by Yahoo. And it got, they contributed that to, in 2016 as a top level project to, or actually I should say they contributed to that Yahoo contributed Pulsar to Apache Software Foundation in 2016. And then that became a top level project in 2018. And essentially too, it's already kind of designed, kind of fundamentally is a cloud native design. It's cluster based and also multi-tenant. And it's the client APIs too is actually not too complicated, but nothing actually it's not complicated, I'd say. But I think relatively speaking is not way too complicated. So, and there are different flavors of languages that it support that includes Java, C#, Python, Go, and there will be other languages as well. And it's basically, that's what it's kind of make it more powerful, is that it separates out the computation part and the storage part as such, right? We're dealing with big data. So it separates them out. So then you kind of have different areas of concern, then you make your computing side to be quite efficient as a result. And okay, so then we talk about like the message delivery, right? Every time we deal with asynchronous style of systems, message delivery is of utmost importance. You don't want, messages to be lost and all of these things. So basically too, Pulsar has a broker too. It has the PubSub kind of model. And it's basically, it has a very good like guarantee message delivery mechanism, and it will guarantee that messages get all delivered to its intended target too. And also, there's also a Pulsar function that offers like lightweight, like serverless functions framework too. It's basically you can create complex processing logic within a Pulsar cluster too. So basically, it allows you to build out all of these data pipelines in a very complex scenario. And also too, oops, I'm sorry. And also to the storage too. Basically, the bookkeeper too, Apache bookkeeper project is what it leverages on for doing all of the log streams storage, durable log stream storage too. So it offload all of the data from hot, warm storage to cold and long-term storage when the data is aging out too. So that's kind of like a big nutshell about what it is, right? So then what is Pulsar? Let's get a bit more into it. It's a unified distributed messaging and streaming platform. It is open source, and I have no sense of repeating that, but the thing is, it's cloud native ready. It works well. You can, it's Kubernetes ready, right? You can deploy to multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, all of these scenarios. So that's what is kind of making it becoming more and more kind of like a strong kind of choice and alternative for you to use if you are dealing with big data and working with the cloud and multi-cloud scenario too. So everything is already kind of built in to support you running in a multi-cloud, multi-tenant. Also, it does geo replication too. So that's kind of ready for that. So as you can see too over here, there are a couple of graphs too. You can see there are Apache Pulsar on the GitHub side, as you can see between 2017, so within 4 years or so, like up to like June in 2021, you see kind of like an 8-fold of increase of GitHub folks kind of like start giving it stars and contributors too. There are also from 27 up to 400, right, between like 4 years time. So it's kind of getting more and more popular too. And over here too, there's also a comparison of the active contributors between Pulsar and Kafka. And looks like too, in June of 2021, is actually Pulsar has more contributors than there are like with Kafka too. So it's clearly like an increasing number of people interested in this project. And who else is using Pulsar? So as you can see too over here, first and foremost, Yahoo, they're still using it. And that's where Pulsar was originally designed by, right? And then, as you can see too, there are other companies that the quite the major ones, right? Comcast and Splunk and GM and all of these other ones too. And I heard too, there are a couple also like delivery, companies too. There have been an increasing number of enterprise, especially enterprise class of companies interested in this technology simply because of it being like ready to do enterprise like multi-cloud things in the modern age. So. Okay, so now, sorry, but I just have to show some of these like marketing things, right? So it's kind of, okay, it's up like 81%, all of these things. So, but you're not as interested in that, I'm sure. You're just interested in what it can do. So, okay. So brief history of Apache Pulsar. I don't know why these slides come in here. It should be first, but as you can see, I think I'm already kind of repeating the same thing that might be, again, this is kind of come from the, from one of our, the content repository that I could take. So, but the thing is too, let's take a look, right? 2016 was when Yahoo open sourced it. And then in today too is version 291 at the present moment, December 20th, 2021. So that actually has the fix for log4j too, so. Okay, so Pulsar is different, right? So why is it different? Let's kind of take a look. What are the advantages of using something like Pulsar versus like Kafka, right? So again, it makes use of the PubSub approach and producer. So essentially, client applications sending messages to topic that are managed by broker. So over here at this kind of a diagram, as you can see. So the thing is too, is not just like one thing, right? It is essentially too, as you can see, you're dealing with like multiple brokers, all of these things, and it basically leverages on Zookeeper that helps it to manage all of the cluster metadata, handles all of the coordination tasks between all of the Pulsar clusters too. And then as you can see too, the consumer, the client application will read messages from the topic managed by the broker. So what is the broker, right? It's broker, again, right? If I use something non-computer to describe, is like a post office, but technically speaking, what it is a stateless process that handles incoming message dispatching, communicates with the Pulsar configuration store, and stores messages in the bookkeeper instances. So that's all the responsibility of the broker, kind of communicating with the bookkeeper. And again, the bookkeeper, as you can see on this diagram, too, each broker too, they are serving, right? Is the post office. It also kind of basically, think of a post office. You have the back, you go to any post office, there's like a back warehouse of all the mail that it is doing, all of these things. So of course, it doesn't have any physical letters or packages, but they have all the data that's handed to, to it, right, to the broker by the producer. So with these data, they will be communicating with all of the bookie. So essentially the bookkeeper is bookie. Each bookie is like, think of it as like one instance of the bookkeeper. And then it will manage all of these kind of huge amounts of data within each, in each of the storage too. So. And okay, so now some of the design principle too about Apache Pulsar, right? So it's a traditional multi-node architecture. It makes use of producer and consumer, is tiered, right? Architecture design. And it supports horizontal scaling, and then partition, topic abstraction, mask complexity from consumers. And some of the common challenges, as you can see over here, is the scaling will require partitioning, rebalancing too. So that's the thing, is that that's why Pulsar is good with that, because it already is originally developed in mind, that knowing that I'm going to be handling a very complex situation in a cluster. So basically the scaling part will, it already has built in like scaling that also takes care of all of these rebalancing among different partition. So basically, tightly coupled persistence and message serving capabilities will impose high costs on historical data. And then the trade-offs to support partition topics came at the expense of messaging semantics needed for use cases such as queuing too. So essentially too, as you can see, with Pulsar too, is interesting because it has pops up, but it also has the topic like message queuing built into it too. And that's what kind of makes it a little bit kind of unique in its capability. So that's something just I wanted to point out. So as you can see, each broker is serving all of the messages, and then it's communicating with the storage, but on the storage side, you have topic partitioning too, that it handles too. So, okay. Okay, the next thing, let's continue, is the Pulsar's multi-node architecture. So over here is we're talking about what's the big deal, right? So it's fast and low impact and offers like horizontal scaling and reduce like capital expense and operation expense, all of these things. So, and the broker itself is stateless, and it has built-in load balancing already. And the scaling is also all kind of instantaneous too, because of this built-in capability. And it's basically, it has zero impact disaster recovery too. And over here too, on the bookie side, so the bookkeeper is scalable and is wall-based and fault tolerance, low latency storage service. And it's tunable too. You can have tunable consistency for message replication. So all of these things, I have to admit, I do not know all of this yet, but if you're interested, also please take a look. And then I can also maybe do another presentation on Bookkeeper at some point after I kind of get more deeper into how, Bookie actually works too. So, and it's basically too, it has fast write guarantee through journals. And also to segment-centric data persistence via ledgers too. So that's kind of like the thing with Bookkeeper. Think of it more like it's Bookkeeper. That's what its job is doing. It organizes all of these data for you through journals and ledgers. So yes.
There's some questions in the chat. Do you want us to hold the questions? Do you want them interactive? How would you like them?
Oh, okay. I can also take a quick first take a look at it too,
Sure.
and if it's too much, then I will wait until later.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, yeah. Let me kind of take a look now. Yeah, thank you. I know too. Sometimes folks wants to have questions asked, so let me not.
I know it's sometimes hard to read the chat while you're speaking, so we're happy to moderate for you if you want.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So let me see it. I see one from Louis Gamma, right? Is Zookeeper list Kafka GA now? Oh, then that I am not. I don't have the answer for you right now, but I can look that up for you later. What advantage could Apache Pulsar have over Zookeeper list Kafka, right? Yeah, so I have a slides too that I'll be also talking about the advantages of Pulsar over Kafka and some of the problems that Pulsar can solve, right? Or problems in Kafka that Pulsar is designed to solve too. So I'll share with you in a little bit, towards my next section of the slide. So yeah, okay, yeah, wall-based, yeah, so Swola, yeah, thanks for asking. That one, you know what, I will have to look that up for you too, because even I'm kind of somewhat new. Oh, right ahead log. Oh, thank you, VJ. So somebody look up here. That's the power of the community. Everybody can be helping each other. Thank you, VJ, for looking up. Yeah, so that's kind of deal with that. So, and Bill too also kind of found something very good, right ahead logging. Yeah, so that's very cool. So as you can see, actually Pulsar can get to be quite complicated because of all, it relies on Bookkeeper. Bookkeeper itself too already has its own, set of ways of doing things, and it handles huge sets of data in clusters, and, handling all the ledgers and everything is not an easy task. So some of these are like protocol too that it leverages on. So yeah, so even I have to admit, I'm kind of learning to some of these new protocols for me too. So, okay. So because as such too, this kind of goes beyond, just like event messaging or event streaming, which I'm more comfortable with, but now I'm getting into big data. Event streaming, as you can see, is not something too simple at all, but thank you for your patience. So, okay, but thanks for asking the question. So I will then move on to the next, to this slide. So basically too, here too, I wanted to bring up, right, Apache Pulsar solves the problem of bolt-on. So as you can see over here, right, you have on premises, you have all these Kafka, JMS, RabbitMQ doing things, but the Pulsar, you can basically bolt it on top of your existing like kind of architecture, your on-premise kind of implementation of things you can put on Pulsar. That basically Pulsar will then you can have a multi-cloud installation of Pulsar on top of it too. So this is something actually quite new, right? Is representing the next generation of enterprise messaging. It's basically a unified solution for PubSub, queuing, streaming, and message mediation and enrichment. So out of the box capability. So think of the fact that normally, right, if you don't have something like Pulsar, then you have to handle, how do you manage, right, multi-cloud on-premise and hybrid cloud kind of installation. And then the geo replication, that's another thing. And that's actually a big thing about this geo replication. You can have data centers that's in North America. You can have another one in Europe, in Asia, all of these things. And think of this system, this infrastructure already has built-in capability of dealing with replication for you across, different installation in different geographical locations. So that's kind of like a strength of Pulsar too. And again, multi-region support too. And also the data lake integration, so that actually deals more with the data warehousing, kind of data mining kind of aspect of things. So it's actually quite interesting too. I think that there's, this is still evolving as we speak, right? It's only been 2 years into actually 2018. So 3 years or so like open sourcing. So it's not like, it isn't done yet. There are still a lot of new features to be unearthed, right? So. Okay, so basically here too is this reiteration. Pulsar provides a unified platform for all events in the enterprise. So over here too, this is just a diagram showing you, right, a unified infrastructure with built-in geo replication, and and multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-region too. So again, too, over here, right, they're unified enterprise messaging and streaming backbone, right? They're wire level messaging protocol compatibility. So as you can see over here on the right side, this particular diagram can explain to you, right? You can have so many different systems doing different things, all kinds of installation, especially with large companies that I'm sure you have you've all been, working, at, right? So you understand that, but you think of like Pulsar can become the unifying like project or system in your whole ecosystem that unify everything together. You can have universal upstream connectivity up, to RDBMS and cloud messaging programmatic, kind of all applications and DBMS, all kinds of things. And then you can also have the different, it has compatibility layers with other kind of your enterprise kind of capability, like, you have Java systems, or they're, different pops up kind of implemented in Java or Kafka or with MQ systems too, that it can talk with. And downstream capability over here at the bottom here, you can have Pulsar also talking to all of these things too. So think of it kind of like a giant data pipeline that you want to build in your enterprise, in your big company, and using Pulsar as the one that unifies everything, and everything is just going through different pipes. Think of them almost kind of like Lego pieces. They can all connect and talk with one another. So that's kind of the ultimate goal. Okay, so how is the Pulsar different, right? So the next generation architecture will provide distributed tiered architecture, and it separates compute from storage too. And Zookeeper holds metadata for the cluster. Stateless Broker handles producers and consumers, and the storage then handled by Apache Bookkeeper. So again, I think this diagram I show also a bit earlier too. So as you can see, if conceptually, this is how you can kind of look at it too. Broker will deal with the pub/sub kind of, producer consumer messages, and all of these messages are being, kept, kind of being like passed to the storage, passed to Bookkeeper to kind of deal with all of these things. And Zookeeper will basically maintain the order, kind of like all of the cluster environment, right? Everything managing all of these, different pieces of your puzzles too. So, okay, so basically too, this is just I guess, a visual kind of, you can visualize, what it can do is offers you a rich ecosystem of connectors and clients. You can kind of like take a look, you can connect everything that's, not knowing each other, you can connect everybody together. It almost brings me, I think this slide isn't talking about it, is essentially the industry 4.0 kind of concept into this picture too. I think that's probably all applicable. Industry 4.0 is kind of often being used in the IoT world too, as some of you maybe are working with IoT. There's IoT, and then there's also industrial IIoT, right? Kind of concept. And then there's also the industry 4.0. Essentially too, you can have like factories running, automation and connected cars, everything. They are able to talk to one another. So we're looking for a solution that actually can tie all of these disparate pieces all together, right? And then leveraging on an event-driven kind of or messaging kind of capability to kind of allow everybody to talk to one another. So that's kind of like the goal that we want to reach, right? Being able to communicate in a very, very different kind of what you call it. Each individual is different, but you can still connect with one another is kind of like the concept. So. Okay, so Pulsar features, I think I'm repeating myself again, but essentially it has rapid patching too and zero downtime. So essentially Pulsar too is also offered as a service too, which I'll talk about in a little bit. There are different vendors, but of course now I work for DataStax, so I want to highlight some of the capabilities that DataStax offer you too. So there's rapid patching and zero downtime, all of these things, and multi-tenant too. So essentially it's soft isolation via read-write IO separation, independent storage quotas, message flow control, and throttling mechanisms too. So all of these things too, it actually handles all of it for you. So then on your application level, you don't need to worry so much about what to do, right? If I'm in a multi-cloud scenario and multi-cluster kind of scenario. And then on the security side, now that's also of utmost important in any systems. So for authentication, it is pluggable authentication mechanism that supports like TLS authentication, JWT, OAuth 2.0, Authents, and Kerberos. And there are also role-based authorization that provides control at the cluster, tenant, and message producer and consumer level too. And then there's also end-to-end encryption, in-transit TLS encryption, and application managed content encryption too. So you can be rest assured that the data is safe, in transit especially. So. Okay, so just again, highlight some key differentiator. So the first one is, again, separation between compute and storage, right? So essentially we have the storage part is handled by Bookkeeper. Again, is distributed tiered architecture, and also the scaling too can be independent too. So that's pretty interesting too, but because they are all like independent, right? Independently operated, so. Stateless broker will handle producers and consumers. So the brokers themselves are quite intelligent because it handles like load balancing too. And the storage is handled by Apache Bookkeeper. So segment-centric message storage management. And then there are also fast and low impact horizontal scaling capability too. So there's also not just like vertical kind of scaling, right? There's also horizontal scaling as well. They are low impact as well, which is kind of nice because you don't want, if you need to scale, you don't want things to slow down. You still want to keep going, kind of like that. So. And number two will be about the geo replication. It's all natively built into the Pulsar kind of infrastructure capability too. So there are hands-off real-time message replication across data centers. There's also flexible message replication mode and patterns, synchronous versus asynchronous. There's also active or active passive like configuration too. And then selective message replication too, that you can actually have control on that level too. You can select, certain messages to be replicated or not. And then there are also capabilities to meet data compliance requirements across different geo regions too, especially if some of you are like based in Europe, right? There's GDPR and all of these things. So all those things too, you can configure it accordingly based on your geographical location. That particular cluster, maybe all the data needs to be, passed through some testing, things like that. So, and these are just an example of that picture showing you all these, expressed in picture in here. So. Okay, and then there's also the multi-tenancy part, which is actually consolidated messaging and streaming platform. So operational wise, then it makes it simpler too, because again, it's kind of built in. It has that capability for you to handle multi-tenancy. And also permission control is effective within the business domain context, right? And security, compliance, auditing. And it's better IT resource utilization and reduce total cost of ownership of these things. Your storage quota, message flow control, throttling mechanisms, all of these things. You separate brokers and the bookies for tenants too. So over here, so it's actually quite nice in this case, right? It has you can have different tenants, and within it, you can have different namespaces for different maybe functional needs within your organizational structure usage too. So, okay. And then there's also the fourth thing is about the message processing model is also very flexible. So basically this out of the box like multi-subscription mode. You can have exclusive subscription is basically subscription only for a particular consumer. And then there's also failover. It's essentially, well, you have your primary, right? If something goes wrong with consumer, in this particular case, the second one failover, subscription B, if the consumer B1 is not reachable, whatever reason it fails, and consumer B2 can then take over. And then there's also shared subscription too. So that shared subscription is actually very useful especially in like a cloud-based, like kind of multi-cloud type of environment, because then basically you can have multiple consumers that share the same subscription. And then there's also this thing called key share too, that actually, yeah. So it's probably another kind of more fine-grained way of managing like shared subscription is based on the key. So. Okay, and then there's also good fit with queuing use cases as well. So Kafka is actually would have some issue in this aspect that Pulsar has an advantage over too. So now then, this is the slide. The last thing is about like why Pulsar, right? So it is very flexible and it can act as a distributed log like Kafka or a pure messaging system like RabbitMQ. It has multiple types of subscriptions and several delivery guarantees and retention policies and several ways to deal with schema evolution. So if you want to take a look to actually the Confluent too, the site has Kafka versus Pulsar comparison too, if you want to read that. And there's also another link to over here that you can also take a look at how Apache Kafka is compared with Apache Pulsar event streaming. And then when you should consider Pulsar. So, so I think it's just like anything else, right? It's not like the only answer for everything, but it's basically you have to understand your system, your environment, your needs and requirements, and then you decide on using the best tool accordingly. So, so basically, here it says you need both queues like RabbitMQ and stream processing like Kafka. Then maybe you can consider Pulsar. And then you also need Geo Replication. Geo Replication is already built into Pulsar, so it makes it easier. And then multi-tenancy is a must-have, and you want to secure the access for each of your teams. So that's kind of already kind of built in. You can basically configure and use it. And then you need to persist all of your messages for a long time, and you don't want to offload them to another storage, and maybe you want to consider Pulsar. And also, performance is critical for you, and your benchmarks have shown that Pulsar provides lower latency and higher throughput too. And the thing is too, if you're running on-prem and you don't want to deal with all the cloud and you don't have experience setting up Kafka, but you have Hadoop experience or doing like big data, all that, maybe you want to consider Pulsar. So those are some of the reasons that we can think of that you might want to use Pulsar. And okay, so now then let me bring to your attention a couple of flavors of Pulsar at DataStax. So DataStax 2 is taking Pulsar 10 times farther, right? And so again, looking over here, unified enterprise messaging backbone, right, is binary compatibility with JMS, with MQ and Apache Kafka, and it's built for real-time data pipelines. It's multi-cloud and it's fully open source. It's built-in multi-tenancy, elastic scalability, customer managed or fully hosted too. And then you have self-service developer experience too. So it's quite flexible. We don't dictate how you want to manage it. If you want to pay for our subscription, then DataStax would have hosted options for you. If you want to manage yourself, you can do so too. And if you want to go all open source, you can do that too. So that's the nice thing about it. So, and here, this is what Pulsar meets you where you are, and that DataStax we have Astra streaming. And Astra is the one that's enterprise, and you do pay for the subscription for enterprise support too. We do offer like real good support too, and it managed with a managed Pulsar environment, just like any kind of managed service. Right? It's just like managed, for example, Kafka also has the Confluent managed Confluent Kafka service. So that's Astra streaming if you want that level of service. Or you can actually have enterprise support Pulsar. You can use what is called like Luna streaming too. It's basically, you can also manage too on your own if you want to use the Luna streaming, and it's also offered at no cost. It's an open source option, but you can also purchase enterprise support too. And then there's also a completely open source community driven Pulsar that's actually, you can also use that kind of at however way you want to use it too. So there are kind of three options that you can kind of leverage on Pulsar. And a bit of a comparison against Kafka. So some of the pain points, right, of Kafka is basically if you want to scale Kafka is tricky because of the coupled architecture where brokers also store the data. So spinning off another broker means it has to replicate the topic partitions and replicas, and can be very time consuming. And very often we don't want to deal with that. We want to just send a message and have it kind of be done like that, kind of, take care of things. But the thing is, Kafka just doesn't have that built in to help with all of these kind of dealing with the challenges that you need, right? And especially in kind of like a bigger system, like maybe in a cluster type of environment. So the scaling part isn't as good. And then there are obviously no native multi-tenancy with complete isolation of tenants. And again, too, over here too, right? Storage can become quite expensive. And even though you can store data for a long period of time with Kafka, but it's rarely used because of the cost implications too. So as you can see, like Kafka doesn't have this storage separation from the compute side too. And it is also possible to lose messages in case replicas are out of sync too. And then you can also, with Kafka, the thing is that you have to do, think of it, I think it's a bit more like a lower level kind of primitive use, right? I mean, in the cloud age, because then you must plan and calculate the number of brokers, topics, partitions, all of these things ahead of time, right? To avoid scaling problems, and can be very difficult. But if you kind of use a project as an ecosystem that's already have built-in things for you to deal with, the scalability part, you just need to configure a few things and it can does things for you. Think of it as kind of a managed way of helping you with that aspect of computing. So that's Pulsar can offer you that. And then over here too, with working with offsets could be complicated if you just need a messaging system. And then cluster rebalancing can impact the performance of connected producers and consumers. So basically, if you use Pulsar, it's already got built-in like rebalancing with the broker and everything. It actually will manage all of these issues for you. So then you don't need to worry about, well, if you do it yourself, it's always kind of at a risk too. So. And then there's also this mirror maker geo replication mechanism is problematic in Kafka. So companies such as Uber have created their own solution to overcome these issues too. And of course you can do that, but it also means you have to do all of these work yourself too. So these are some of the Kafka pain points. And over here, as you can see, this is kind of just looking at the two, from a high level kind of design kind of perspective, and that's what it looks like. Just think of, I guess if you look at it, yeah, Kafka is a bit on the primitive side, right? You do the partition, all of these things. It has its own broker, but you manage all of your log data. You have to manage your multiple tenant situation. What if there are multiple, span over geo replication kind of scenarios, different data center? You have to do all those things. Whereas on Pulsar, it has the bookkeeper that helps with all of the storage again. Then within that projects, we already have that handle it for you. So it makes it a bit easier for you to have to not worry about that. So, an architecture advantage of Pulsar too. Again, if you take a look at it, there are compute and storage separation, stateless brokers, independent scalability, and instantaneous broker scaling and disaster recovery over here. So. And then there's also then on the log management side, we're looking at bookkeeper. So segment of a partition is the smallest replication unit and efficient storage utilization, unbounded partition storage, and really truly like horizontal scalability and fast and low impact scaling and disaster recovery. So that's with Apache, Pulsar, and bookkeeper. So with that, I hope it has been helpful and it's not too confusing. I mean, I have to admit to even some of the things I'm also discovering myself. So I would love to continue kind of the conversation too. But here it is, some links for you to look at if you like. This is the Pulsar link to Pulsar, bookkeeper and Zookeeper. And then with data stacks, we have Astra streaming and Luna streaming. Now, if you go to the Astra streaming, Luna streaming site, basically too, you can try things out too. Today, there are actually free account. You can, no credit card, you can actually spin up your cluster and try Pulsar out too. So, but as of today, I just haven't got that ready for today. So I apologize for that. And I think I have this one. And then I just wanted to invite you. I do have a weekly Twitch stream every Wednesday at 2 p.m. On my Twitch, and this is my Twitch URL if you'd like to join me. Earlier too, I was doing more Java, reactive, all kinds of things, and I still do that. But for the past couple of weeks too, I was also doing something on test containers and doing like with integrating with MQTT broker too. So I think for tomorrow's episode, I'm gonna go and try out the Astra streaming and maybe logging on and kind of take a look at things. So if you are interested, please join me. And if you can't join me live, you can always watch the recording too. They're being kept for, I believe, like 60 days. So, and also with Pulsar, please join us at the hood. I call it hood. And it's actually my colleague to my new colleague at Data Stacks. He has set up, he's also recently joined to it. He's done a great job setting up some meetups. So this is also growing, and currently it's everything online. So you can join from anywhere, including if you speak Italian. Actually, we have also a meetup group based in Italy that actually they have Italian speaking meetup too. So if you want to listen to Italian part, we have a meetup group for you, but we are adding more and more meetup groups from different cities and different languages too. So everything is growing there. And then there's also an Apache Pulsar neighborhood over here. It's just essentially a blog site or kind of wiki site kind of for all of us to share information. So yeah, so please kind of continue investigating it. I think it's kind of promises a lot of very interesting thing to it. So. And thank you so much. And thank you once again. Thank you to the Garden State Jug, to Neha, to Michael, to Barry, to everybody, who came on an evening. So thank you so much. So.
Oh, this was awesome. One of the things I just realized that we missed from in-person meetings is, everybody being able to applaud the speaker upon his or her, upon concluding his or her presentation. So, I mean, I guess we could do that virtually somehow, but still, I mean, this was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know we're going to be doing our IntelliJ. Barry, do you want to take that over? I think you have that randomizer.
I got it.
Okay.
So everyone just wants to thank Mary for speaking today. Really appreciate it.
So we can...
I don't know if we thanked her, but do you have time for any questions? Does anybody?
Oh yeah, that's
Mary,
right. That would help.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have time for questions? Let's start with that.
Sure. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so there's one question I think left already. Neha has one already.
Neha. Yeah.
I was wondering because this sounds really interesting. So which other JVM languages are supported by Apache Pulsar? I'm particularly interested in, is Scala supported?
Scala, right? Yeah, very, very good question. I believe they will be supported. I think at the moment I don't see it on the list, but let me double check. Yeah, with the folks working on it. But that's a great question. Yeah, but I think their intent is to increase the number of languages, language support too, is what my understanding. But that's a great question. Thanks, Neha. I will get the answer to you and everybody. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Does anybody have any other questions? I will say you talk pretty quickly, and I say this as someone who talks quickly as well. You covered a lot in an hour, so I'm impressed.
Thank you. As I mentioned, this is my second day, so I'm a bit kind of really green on it. I'm like, oh.
No, you definitely came off as a pro. So anybody else have any other questions?
Very kind. Very kind. Hey.
I see a raised hand from Ricky.
Yeah. Hey, Mary. Thank you for the talk. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Great.
Ricky, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again. This was really informative. And I had a question specific to, so, as with Kafka, right? One of the key components that it's missing to satisfy like a verifiably consumed or produced event is the bookkeeper component, right? And so you have to implement like your own bookkeeper pattern to satisfy did I produce everything I'm supposed to, and did I consume everything that I'm supposed to, right? So I saw that you went into, we have the bookkeeper component from Apache that's kind of bundled up and wrapped into the Pulsar components. And that this is great actually right here. So you have the bookies, right? So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more on this. Is I think is very clear for how like a publisher publishes an event out to the distributed architecture that is Pulsar. But when I consume an event, to satisfy this bookkeeper pattern from like a consumer's perspective, I have to go out and like consume like a window event on a separate Kafka topic to make sure, hey, did I consume everything on my business topic that I'm supposed to consume, as a means of like reconciling back against these other events. So are you able to like maybe go into some detail there on that, on how like Pulsar solves that problem a little bit differently?
That's a really, really good question. I'll have to, I have to, let me think. Would it be okay? I mean, would you be interested maybe, I won't, I do not mind at all. But I think let me spend a bit of time, right? To kind of.
No, I realized I said a lot there, and I'm sorry if I get a little bit long-winded, but I just shot you a follow on Twitch, so I'll be there tomorrow night. So.
Oh yeah. Please do. Yeah, I'll answer you tomorrow at my Twitch. Yeah, I promise. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it takes time, it's fine. I just
that's great.
You've got me really curious about this, because like this seems like it solves a lot of the fundamental aspects of the bookkeeper pattern that I've spent way more time than I care to admit trying to satisfy this requirement.
Oh,
but
yeah. Wow.
Just to put it in perspective for you, like that piece of it solves, like I have like 90 some thousand events that I've published, and only like 13 of them failed to actually get like successfully published. So it's like this super edge case, but if I can use something like this would be great.
Yeah, wow, that's great. I mean, you actually, I'm learning from how you ask the question is perfect, because even I'm looking for like test cases. Well, how can we fully be testing, what is the advantage? I think your question actually pointed out why we want to go with something like Pulsar. In fact, so that's very good. And I'll think about it tonight. I'll give you the answer tomorrow. So yeah.
You don't have to give it to me tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll do my own research too. I was just curious if you do. So
yeah. Thank you.
And anyone else? Again, you don't need to use the chat now. I think we're past that. If anybody wants to ask a question, and Mary still has time, I don't want to use up all your time, Mary. But if you still have time, anyone else who wants to ask?
Yeah, no problem. I have all the time anybody needs. Yeah, so I love coming to communities. So yeah. So yeah, or you can join me tomorrow on Twitch and ask questions there too. And my Discord, right? I have my Discord. Hold on. Yeah, my Discord too. If you want to join my Discord server, I'm always online there. So yeah, you can ask any questions.
So Ricky, before you go tomorrow, just go to DataStax and get an account, and you should be able to get the answer yourself tomorrow. And you get a $300 credit for signing up the first day.
Oh.
So you're set.
Oh,
Just
wow.
go to DataStax.
Oh, so you signed up one already, Bill? Did you?
Well, I'm trying to get a piece of Ricky's action, so
Okay.
I don't have the same problem he does. Just a second.
Oh.
But I did look at your website, and you could get started right away, so it's cool.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that's my understanding too. So as I mentioned, my second day there, so I haven't even tried out a lot of things yet. I have yet to do that. So yeah.
Ricky, did you want to say something? Oh, you had I think you still have your hand up. I'm not sure if that was from earlier. All right, never mind. No, he says never mind. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to, I don't know, is it Mike or Barry? Somebody's doing the raffle.
Mike is introducing it and then I'm doing it.
Okay.
And Mike's muted.
You're still muted, Mike. Does anyone read lips?
Yes. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so I think if I remember rightly, this is only the second time we're using this new randomizer. All the participants had to guess a number or something like this?
Yeah, so I'll take over. You just want to tell them what they'll win?
Yes, it's a 1-year license to IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate Edition. And if you want to, after that 1 year, you can have the option to continue. It's about $100, I think, but it's well worth it. I pay for WebStorm and for IntelliJ IDEA, and I think it's about 130 for both of those products, annually. So that's a pretty good deal, I think. So
I think it's more than that. I thought it was.
So whoever wins tonight will get a coupon via PDF that has it's a PDF file that it's a coupon, and it has a long number, hexadecimal number that you can use to redeem. The coupon itself has a 3-month expiration on it. So
It's $149 value.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I get a discount or something, but in any event. So what's the number between 100 and?
Well, yeah, let me just do this. First of all, my Zoom app is not telling me what you're seeing on the screen. So are you seeing the wheel?
We
Yeah.
are.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is ask for everybody to put a number in the chat, a number from 0 to 99.
And this is if you want to participate in the raffle. If you don't want to participate in the raffle, just do
Please
nothing.
And please don't participate if you don't intend to use the coupon. So everybody who would like to win the 1 year of IntelliJ in the raffle, please put a number in the chat from 0 to 99.
Preferably one that hasn't been used already.
All right, they're all coming in now.
We're going to spin the wheel, and whoever's closest to the number on the wheel, modulo 100, will win the IntelliJ 1 year license. In case of a tie, we're going to have an Olympic style bobsledding contest.
I was going to go with feats of strength.
Oh, wait,
but,
not
that's
curling?
fine.
It looks like we've got about 10 participants so far.
Thereabouts.
Wait another minute or so, or half minute, whatever.
You know, the nice part is we used to do this on YouTube and we'd have to wait like a minute after we said this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was like a buffer. We'd sit there and be like, all right, YouTube has to catch up with our conversation.
Are we ready?
I think we're ready. I think nobody else is.
Here we go.
Is it over there? No? Did it?
The only wheel I see spinning now is the Apple Busy wheel.
Did it spin? I didn't see it spin.
No, but can you see my spinning cursor?
Oh, wait.
There we go.
Oh, something's changing.
No, there's
Oh,
something. Do
weird. My machine is really, yeah.
you want me to spin on it?
It's kind of taking us out because it looks like it's stopping on a number and then it keeps going.
It was spinning great earlier when we did this, didn't we?
Yeah, it was.
I think I was told by a representative from Apple that I have too much crap on my machine. And
Well, I guess tell us when it stopped and we'll believe you.
Okay.
It's moving in very slow motion is all I can say from my perspective.
Patience in all things.
Well, what suspense, Barry? This is great.
I've never seen it spin so slowly. I certainly hope that it is prepared to stop.
I could take the numbers that people entered and just put them on a wheel if you...
This is very strange. It's not stopping.
I have a replacement wheel if we want.
Well, instead of that, let me try something else here.
Saleh wrote a comment saying it needs to be written in Rust.
That is so funny.
Okay, so we're gonna do random.
Barry, do you want me to? I have the wheel ready.
No.
It's really pretty.
And it's gonna be the minimum.
Functional.
This
You
is
can
how
go-
you all know it's authentic.
You can always go back to my.
And
to
here
my
we go.
application.
Generate. The number's 30.
All right, so what do we got here?
Who is closest to 30 without going way
We've
out?
got a 33. What else do we have? I think 33 might be the winner, Scott.
Oh, that was me. Nope. Really?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Oh, I've needed an LJ license.
It's rigged.
Yeah, 26 was the second closest. Oh, what are we doing? Are we running it again?
No, I
We gotta close this or we're gonna have conflicting results.
Hey, so Scott won, right?
Yep. And
Okay.
it's been like 2 years since I've won, so I really needed it.
Okay, good job, Barry. Way to
All right.
come
There
through.
we are.
All right, so I guess Scott, yeah, well, I have your email address. So I'm gonna share my screen, but I'm gonna make sure I'm in the right tab in my browser. So I just want to wrap up tonight. So let's do that. And we'll share. And let's close out some of this stuff. Let's see. Slideshow, that's right. Continue where we were. Awesome. Okay. All right, so some upcoming events. This is a local computer festival that's been around since 1975, or at least the second entry there. or 76, I should say. Some of us were alive at that time. But the day before is the Trenton Computer Festival IT Professional Conference, and this has been around since 2006, and it is intentionally scheduled the day before the weekend event. And if you're, there's 2 tracks, and we have, I guess, 12 talks altogether. So yeah, if you have some time, this is all virtual, it's all free. And of course, the TCF is free as well. And then, of course, I mentioned DevNexus, and there's the Oracle, what was it again, Scott? Live something. Scott? Okay.
Hold on one second, Mike. Sorry. Dev Live.
Dev Live, that's it.
Which is going to be on the 20, I think the 20, I want to say the 22nd. Sorry, I closed up all my windows and had everything useful. Bear with me. Yeah, March 22nd in the Americas, March 24th elsewhere, and it'll be this month, and it's entirely virtual. So
awesome.
It's basically a one-day conference, basically.
So looking ahead to next month for us, it's almost a month to the day. We have Venkat Subramaniam going to visit with us on Tuesday, April 5th. And he's going to discuss refactoring from imperative to functional style. And we've been trying to secure some other speakers for May and beyond, so stay tuned for that. If you're interested in being on my distribution list, I send only 2 or 3 a month. If you can send an email to info@gsjug.org, I'm more than happy to put you on that list. And then we have upcoming meetings from Friends of Garden State Java Group, and there are 2 meetings on Thursday, and the New York Java SIG, Functional Programming in Java, Groovy, and Kotlin with Ken Cowson. That's at 6:30 Eastern. And then Mary will host Cora Iberclyde and Maria Gabriela Brody to talk about production-like integration testing for distributed containerized applications. And that's at 7 o'clock Central. So keep that in mind for those of us on the East Coast or other time zones. And then Mary will be presenting this very same presentation to the Kansas City Java group. Of course, Billy Carando is one of the co-organizers of that Java group. So that's on March 17th at 5:30 Central. So, and then Mary, we discussed earlier, Billy's going to also talk about Java 18 and beyond. The same presentation that he gave to us in January, I believe, on March 24th at Chicago Java Group. So
yes.
So yeah, so that's a lot of stuff coming up, with us, with our friends, and
for next month, if you haven't heard Venkat speak, you should definitely attend. He's an interesting one. I don't know. I don't want to ruin it for you. Just enjoy it. He's a great one to listen to. So if you haven't heard him speak, you should definitely attend next month.
Yeah, a few of us here have met Venkat, a number of times over the years. I think Barry, you and I met him at one of the No Fluff Just Stuff conferences back like 2006 timeframe, for the very first time.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing that just happened. Since I know about the events that are coming up, I got distracted while you were talking about it, and I went back to the wheel and clicked it just to see what would happen, and it ran just perfectly.
It's your video card.
But it came up on the number 33, which is Scott's exact number.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Wow.
My hacking skills aren't that good, so it's meant to be. I'm guessing it's your video card because streaming over video, it got mad.
Yeah. So I think Bill raised his hand. Bill Brutzman.
Yes, we were talking about I don't know if it's the week, the month, the century of the woman or something, but there was a question on TCF. There's a cybersecurity women's panel.
Yes.
I finally got you Kathy Pitt's email and sent it to you.
Yes.
The date is coming up. So if you could send her an email and give her all the scoops, then I think she'll be a star performer. And
Yeah, I failed to mention that before. Thanks for reminding me, Bill. This was recommended by Rebecca Mercury. She participated in a Women in Cybersecurity panel in October of 2020. And I thought, well, that's an awesome idea. And to have for the TCF IT Professional Conference, of the original participants, only one responded to my email. And I don't know if it wound up in their spam folder or they thought I was a creeper, whatever, but, but in any event, we're trying to get together the panel for at least 2 or 3, ladies to discuss cybersecurity. So that's why I have no details on the website just yet. So I know it's coming up on the 18th, which is only 10 days from now. So I'll be busy trying to put that together. So I think that'll be awesome. And I have it across both tracks this way for maximum attendance. So with that, I have my usual ending slide here, because it is that time of the of the night to celebrate another successful Garden State Java Group meeting. And again, Mary, thank you very much. This was an awesome presentation. That's event messaging and those kinds of things I have not had a chance to really wrap my mind around yet. And so this was a good introduction for that. I've used publisher subscriber type things with design patterns. I think the observer design pattern is kind of runs along that line, but but it's not as sophisticated as what you presented tonight.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah.
So with that, and any other questions? Anybody, just unmute yourselves and speak now, or wait till next month. So.
Well, Mike, I just want to come back to this whole idea of, yay, it's International Women's Day, but what does that mean for everybody? And thinking about, what can you do, right? So what you can do is be an encourager to the women on your teams, be an advocate for them to, maybe you're helping organize a conference, or someone who is, hey, go talk to so-and-so. They're an expert, but they're not getting talked about. And especially when it comes to hiring or opportunities, it's really hard when an opportunity in front of you, if it's the best thing that you've ever had a chance to do, it's really hard to ask for more. So encourage pay transparency, encourage the women around you to push harder, because we're out here and we're working our asses off. But not every woman understands exactly what they're worth and what the other people around them that are getting the same are doing, because it's a mystery, but whatever it is, the data shows that this is our world and it ought to be different. So, if you do anything today, just think about one thing that you can do to make it a little bit better. And that is a win.
Awesome.
Thank you all for joining us, because it's been a really fun evening here tonight.
Yes, absolutely. It's, this is, for me personally, I've been running this Java group, even though it was under a different name for the first 19 plus years. But we've passed 21 years so far. And,
Wow.
these sessions now, this past, since we rebranded as the Garden State Jug, has been just, well beyond my expectations. We have an awesome leadership team. We work hard. We meet once a week to discuss, just a whole bunch of things on behind the scenes stuff and everything else. And we have an action item list and stuff like that. So, from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank everybody enough on our leadership team for all their contributions and making this a successful venture. So,
Great. Thank you.
Yep, great job. Great
Thank
job.
you so much.
Awesome. All right, folks. With that, my beverage center is right behind me, waiting to open up my first craft beer. So we will bid you adieu until April 5th.
Everybody, see you next
Thank you, Mary. Good job, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
everyone.
Thank you again. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.